Hey there fellow creators, Ben here, welcome back to Cinderblock Studios. Now, this week we're talking about a couple of things. First, Golden MSA acrylics, but in order to talk about exactly what they are, we need to have a lesson on the history of acrylic paint. And actually it's a lot newer than people seem to think it is. Stick around. So these little jars on them say Golden Custom Product, MSA, and then the color name. In this case, Naphtha Red Light. What are these exactly? When I first saw them, I was like, I was online looking around at stuff. They have a few custom products on their own website, but then it just listed a phone number. And then I was looking on Blick's website, and you couldn't get these on Blick's website. So I was like, how the hell do you even get a hold of these things? These particular paints are known as restoration paints, or MSA stands for Mineral Spirit Acrylic. You're like, okay, that's weird. So, and we're talking about a small amount of paint here. And these were not cheap. So why would I buy them? So let's first kind of take a step back and dive a little bit into sort of the history of these paints. So acrylics have actually only kind of been on the market since about the mid-1950s. Back in the early 1900s, the first sort of acrylic resins were created, mostly by a German chemical company known as BASF. And that was really just sort of an industrial application. They weren't doing creating acrylic resin for the use of paints. They were doing it for chemical products and creating plexiglass and stuff like that. And then a couple of years after that, it was 1934 when they were able to kind of isolate that and put it and create a paint out of it. That particular paint is probably most similar to what latex paint is that you spread on your walls in your house today. Now we jump ahead a little bit to the late 1940s, where paint maker Leonard Bocour and his apprentice Sam Golden created a sort of more water-soluble acrylic, which is a lot closer to what you might consider acrylic paints today. But what they created were actually something like this, a Mineral Spirit acrylic. And that was like late 40s or so. These Mineral Spirit paints were the ones that were actually first marketed towards artists, and we're talking about 1950 now. Now after the Mineral Spirit acrylics were created, Sam Golden himself created sort of a more water-based paint, something he referred to as Aquatec. Now that particular type of paint doesn't really exist anymore, but what shortly followed that development were two guys creating paints. Those two guys created commercial products. One was Polytech Acrylics, which I don't think exists anymore, and the other guy created something called Liquitex, and that is still around today. And then with these more water-based acrylics sort of hitting the market, the year is now 1953, and now you're starting to see artists paint on canvas with what we know today as heavy body acrylics. Remember that guy, Sam Golden, kind of mentioned earlier, and how important he was? Well, eventually he settled down, had a family, retired, the way most people do. And then in 1980, he partnered up with his son Mark and created a little paint company we know today as Golden Artist Colors. They did get a little bit of flack since sort of they're the new kid on the block in terms of acrylic companies. But the truth is, because you had a guy who literally basically invented acrylic paint suddenly coming out of retirement to make paint, it's like, yeah, that's why the paint's going to be good. And then later on, they created some of these. Golden Custom Product MSA Acrylics. These are the closest thing to that original paint that Sam and Leonard created in the 1940s. So this is historical acrylic, basically getting remade today. So as the name suggests, Mineral Spirit acrylics are sort of based on a mineral spirit binder. Right on the front of this, there's a big X. And you're like, okay, that's weird. Why is there a big X on it? At the bottom of this is actually a little sign that says, warning, combustible. These are technically sort of a petroleum-based product, and I knew this almost immediately because I wasn't, blind. I knew what I was buying. Also, the first time you crack one of these open, it smells like gasoline. Now, for someone like me, when it comes to buying a new product, a lot of times when I do, it has to do with being like, I have never seen this before, I want it. And that's what these really were for me. It was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I'm probably never going to use it, but I've never experienced paint like this, so I've got to try it, right? So the MSA might have acrylic in the name, but one thing you're going to find is that these do not clean up with soap and water. Because they are a petroleum-based product, you need something a little bit stronger. Turpentine, for example. Now, turpentine smells a lot. I have some odorless mineral spirits in the studio, but it's specifically recommended turpentine on the website. Specifically because low odor mineral spirits can not work, and odorless mineral spirits really just dissolve the paint. So you have to have something that can really kind of mix in and dilute the paint, because water is just, it resists, it kind of puddles up and it doesn't do anything. The problem with turpentine is, again, it smells really, really, really bad. So it's not something I'm going to be using inside. And honestly, I don't want to use this for these paints at all. I'd rather stick my face in a sewer than smell this stuff on a regular basis. One thing I was surprised that worked though were some of my low odor mineral spirits. Now, each brand is going to do these a little bit differently, so it's important to test out what you've got. But these do seem to work, and the smell is better, not great. Still not something I'm probably going to use inside, but it'll do the job. And then I mentioned the odorless mineral spirits. They can clean your brushes, but you're not going to be able to mix and work with the paint that way. What's the most interesting about these paints is, because of the ability to mix with the mineral spirits and turpentine, that you can let them dry and reactivate them with the spirits. Sort of what you might expect out of a watercolor, being able to reactivate with water, but with a chemical in this case. Now, do I recommend doing that? Not really. It's not the most effective thing to do, and it kind of dissolves a little bit, but I also should mention that I kind of don't recommend you going out and trying to get some of these. These are designed for art conservators, people who are grabbing these pieces from those early days, those 40s and 50s, and maybe that need a little bit of restoration, a little polishing, a little bit of touch-ups. That's what these paints are for. Now, when it comes to studio use, having them around here, I'm probably going to end up using them maybe here and there on some mixed media projects, stuff that I maybe have to paint on just alternative supports. I've got a commission project lined up where I have to paint on an old metal saw. These are probably going to be really useful for that. But generally speaking, they're not something you're going to be going out and buying. So why did I? One, the biggest reason, I saw something I didn't have, I wanted it. And it's something I've never seen before. Two, I like playing with things of historical value. Well, yes, these are modern, they have been made recently. What they represent is an important leap in how acrylics went from just being a industrial and commercial medium to something for every single artist. By no means will I be trading in my regular tube for a 1-ounce jar, because, to be honest, by volume, these are technically the same prices like these, which is kind of crazy. But at the same time, it kind of gives you an opportunity to really expand your horizons into stuff and into areas that you may not have considered taking your work. So do I recommend you buy them? No. Please don't, actually. They're not for the regular artist. They're not even probably for someone like me. I probably shouldn't have bought them. But it's important, again, to expand your horizons and to learn about this stuff. Hopefully you've done that in this video, and hopefully my experience of getting them, playing with a horrible turpentine, is enough for you to say, okay, this is fun, this is interesting, but I don't need to try these for myself. Well, you know what they say, the truth is oftentimes stranger than fiction. And that, I really feel, is kind of the same idea with learning about certain art materials. You never really know how old or how young certain materials are, especially when you start having a look. Acrylics, they're really the new kid on the block. Still, they're less than 100 years old, while oils have been around for centuries. But I think in the long term, acrylics are still here, are going to be here to stay. They're not going anywhere. I think in some times, maybe down the road, say 300 years, the thought of using oils probably going to fall out of practice. But I could be wrong. Like I just said, it's fun to have historical items, and I think that's why oils probably have stuck around as long as they have. So, if you learned something in this, go ahead and hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in comments below. Consider supporting on Patreon. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Check out art on my own website. And this has been Cinderblock Studios, and I will see you guys next time. Messed up a little bit there at the end, though. Darn.